Global Firepower GFP, which unveiled the 2020 Global Power Index and ranks of countries in the world based on their military forces, placed Uganda 13 out of 35 countries. This year's ranking assessed 138 nations, including 24 from Africa. GFP based its ratings on 5 criteria, namely the number of serving military members, the naval force, fuel availability for military operations, the number of jet fighters, the defense budget, and logistics flexibility. According to reports, with 6,162 troops, Uganda is the second largest contributor to peacekeeping operations worldwide as of December 31st, 2021. This was contained in a study done by Cypre, a global security think tank. Uganda's troops are in the African Transition Mission in Somalia, ATMIS, where it is the leading nation in the mission. It was the first country to deploy in the UN-backed operations in 2017, and for it has earned recognition around the world. ATMIS is the largest multilateral peace operation in the world with 19,384 military personnel. According to reports, a contingent of 530 Ugandans, blue helmets, is playing a crucial role in the United Nations efforts to help bring peace and stability to Somalia. They make up the United Nations Guard unit that is tasked with protecting UN compounds in Mogadishu. Uganda has also deployed in Equatorial Guinea, DR Congo, and South Sudan. However, Uganda has increased its contributions to UN missions, mainly in support of activities in Somalia. To complement Ugandan efforts in the AU mission, Uganda hosts the UN's Regional Service Center in Entebbe and a peace operations support hub at Entebbe, which provides logistics and administrative support to UN missions in Africa, but also peacekeeping training courses to missions and related offices in the region.
A country that has been unstable since 1989, because when the civil war started, you can't have stabilized it in 20 years. They are not even 20 years yet, 15 years. It's superfluous. It's a process that you must sustain for some time.
Uganda was the first country to deploy troops to Somalia as part of the African Union mission in 2007. Although other states have joined AMISOM, Uganda remains the largest contributor, providing over 6,000 troops and police officers, mostly in Sector 1 around Mogadishu, Sector 3 around Baidoa, and in the multinational force headquarters also in Mogadishu.
If the African Union had its own capacity to sustain boots on the ground, it would still remain there.
However, Brigadier General Felix Kulaije says despite the ongoing efforts by the African Union forces to stabilize Somalia, to which UPDF is a party, Somalia to stabilize will start with Somalis themselves. Somalia, to a greater extent, being a monolithic nation, the need to have an all-inclusive army is key towards addressing its internal strives.
We know we have done a lot. One, for Somali people to sit down and talk to each other inside the country is a fundamental transformation. Remember, the first meeting was in Kenya. The other was, I think, in Addis Ababa or even Egypt. But that the Somali people would be able to talk to each other from home soil was a fundamental change made by Uganda. Two, Somalia had become an unsolvable problem. The moment you put boots on the ground, even those who are fearing to come came. 3, the Somali people have had elections 4 times now, since 2007. They have changed the president not through shooting him, but through a ballot. Ballot. Yes, it's not universal suffrage, but at least the Somali presidents are elected by Somalis themselves from home.
But what is the challenge at play for the Somali government once the UPDF forces under the AMISOM exceed the Horn of Africa country?
The most important factor in this is the national, the Somali himself or herself. They are the ones to build their institution. Our role has been support, and supporting we have done.
Uganda being a leading contributor to AMISOM, Uganda is also instrumental in the development of the Eastern Africa Standby Force and other AU-affiliated conflict management initiatives. Uganda has provided the director for ISFCOM, participated in several joint multinational military exercises in the region, and has developed a rapid deployment capability for the future AU and the East Africa Standby Force missions. Despite of this, Uganda has also deployed in Equatorial Guinea. According to the U.S. intelligence agency, CIA Factbook, Equatorial Guinea has a small army of about 1,500 troops. It has 400 policemen, 200 Navy service members, and about 120 in the Air Force. The 75-year-old Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo assumed power in August 1979 after mounting a coup that toppled his uncle Francisco Macias Nguema, who was also the country's first president. The first batch of Uganda People's Defense Forces troops left quietly for Equatorial Guinea in 2017 for a covert mission of reinforcing security for that country's president, Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo, and officially to strengthen capacity of the Guinean armed forces. The troops were drawn from different armed units, logistics, special forces, intelligence, medical and motorized infantry. They are also said to have left with their own military hardware.
That's our mandate as Pan-Africanists. Equatorial Guinea is part of Africa. And when the head of state of that country seeks support from us, we are more than ready to give it.
The country was thrust into the sport recently for granting asylum to former Gambian strongman Yaya Jammeh, who was forced out after 22 years in power by Economic Community of West Africa. Mr. Jammeh had conceded defeat in the elections, but later tried to cling on. President Obiang Nguema is ranked the longest-serving non-traditional leader in the world, with 37 years under his belt. But what has been UPDF's success stories in trying to build a national army for Equatorial Guinea?
We are still building. In fact, soon we are signing an MOU between Minister of Defense of Uganda, Minister of Defense and Veterans Affairs of Uganda, and Minister of Defense of Equatorial Guinea. It's being worked on.
According to the status of forces agreement, Equatorial Guinea agreed to cater for transport, logistics, feeding, allowances, and other incidentals of the UPDF troops. But what does it mean for Uganda in the context of Pan-Africanism for Equatorial Guinea?
It means our clients, if I may use that word, are happy with our work. They are the ones seeking to say, look, we need to develop this into a memorandum of understanding.
Despite Equatorial Guinea being an oil and gas exporting country, what is Uganda's economic interest in Equatorial Guinea?
Have you heard of the All Africa Trade Area? Now, how will you trade with the whole of Africa if there is instability in Africa? How? One of the biggest diseases on the continent has been instability, unstable governments. For citizens to do business, they need a stable government. So we need stable governments across the continent. Then our business people will do business. Today, we are talking about an all-Africa free trade area. How will you have it when there is fighting in Chad, in Equatorial Guinea, in Mali, in Burkina Faso? You can't.
From Equatorial Guinea, Uganda deployed in South Sudan in 2014 after the eruption of a civil war based on ethnic differences between the Dinkas led by President Salva Kiir and Nuer led by Dr. Riek Machar.
For you to build a stable country called South Sudan, you must build stable institutions, strong institutions. SPLA, as the national army, had to build an ideological army. But guess what happened after independence? The United States government told them to disband political education from there. So a department which was political and moral orientation was reduced to moral orientation. There is no way you can transform a guerrilla army into a national army without political education.
But what was Uganda's role in helping the warring factions emerge from this situation?
We did share with them this idea. And indeed, in the bush they did it. They even came into government when I told you they had PMO, political and moral orientation. The moment they got into government, they embraced the US military. And one thing they were told to remove, political education. Like they tried here. Chankwan's was stopped by the US and the Western Europe plus World Bank. They accused us of indoctrinating Ugandans. But what were we doing? Building a national consciousness.
Despite all the differences kindled by the interference of Western powers, what does South Sudan need to do? Build stable institutions of governance.
One, over the national security agencies. Okay? Political consciousness over the national army, national police. Two, ideological orientation over the leaders of the different groups. Three, build capacity of the institutions. Capacity of government to stand on its own, build security agencies, to build stability, to create a peaceful and stable environment for the common South Sudanese. Three, building the economy. Now the economy, that's why I started with these two, requires a government that is firm, requires a stable environment. Then you can talk of economic policies.
As UPDF, whom do you fault for the crisis in South Sudan?
Are the international actors. Yes, that's very true. I was there during the crisis in 2013. This is not hearsay, I saw it. Even recently there was a conference organized by the British High Commission from South Sudan. They are talking about elections. But you know, there are 8 different guerrilla groups today fighting in South Sudan. Even the sitting government has had to have 5 vice presidents for purposes of peace. Now, instead of building the institutions now, they are talking about elections. And you keep asking, ladies and gentlemen, the last time we had the election in South Sudan, a civil war erupted. What insulation have you put in place? Nothing. So the international actors need to be patient with these younger nations that are building stability.
Once the Western powers insist on meddling in Africa affairs in the context of South Sudan, we are likely to see a similar situation in Somalia that is gradually building institutions of governance.
The same problem is in Somalia now. We are having elections, yes, but are you sure the Somalis are ready to have multi-party elections?
Sibasi, UBC.